In this video, we're going to show you how to shoot in log and color grade your footage for cinematic results. So, what is log shooting? Log stands for logarithmic, which is a type of gamma curve that your camera uses to record the brightness and color of an image. A gamma curve is basically a function that maps the input values of your camera sensor to the output values of your video file. Shooting in log allows your camera to capture more detail in the bright and dark areas of your image than a standard gamma curve. Log also gives you more control when adjusting exposure, contrast, and color in editing without losing detail or adding noise. However, shooting in log can make your footage look flat and desaturated straight out of the camera. This is because your camera doesn't adjust contrast or color correct your footage when shooting in log. Shooting in log can make it hard to judge your exposure. You also need to color grade the footage in post-production to make the footage look good. Shooting in log is different from shooting in RAW, which is another technique that can capture more detail and dynamic range. Shooting in RAW means that your camera records the sensor data without any compression or processing, giving you the highest quality and flexibility possible. However, shooting in RAW also requires more storage and processing power to edit. Shooting in log also differs from shooting in standard gamma curves, such as Rec. 709. Standard video formats like Rec. 709 apply a contrast curve and a color space to your footage, allowing them to look good right out of the camera. However, they also limit the dynamic range. While standard video formats are simpler to shoot and edit, they have less room for color correction or enhancement. Here's the same scene shot in log and a standard gamma curve. You can see how each affects the image quality and color. Different cameras have different log profiles. Oftentimes, they are brand specific, like S-Log for Sony, C-Log for Canon, and V-Log for Panasonic. Each log profile has its own characteristics that affect image quality and performance. Shooting in log requires some adjustments to your exposure and monitoring settings. Here are some tips on properly exposing for log. Expose for the midtones or the skin tones of your subject. Use a histogram or zebras to measure the brightness of your scene. The midtones are the middle range of brightness between the shadows and highlights. The skin tones are usually around 50 to 70% on the histogram or around 70 IRE on the zebras. Be careful not to clip or crush your highlights or shadows. Clipping happens when areas are so bright that they lose detail and become pure white. Crushing means that some areas are so dark that they lose detail and become pure black. A lookup table, or LUT, converts the colors of your log footage to a standard color space, such as Rec. 709, so you can see how it will look after color grading. Having a LUT preview is helpful because you can view what your footage will end up looking like as you shoot. Some cameras allow you to load in a LUT, while others may offer a view assist or a preview in your log footage with the LUT applied. Here are some examples of well-exposed and poorly exposed log footage. You can see how the exposure affects the detail, noise, and color of the image. You can also see how the LUT or the waveform can help you judge your exposure. So now that you know how to shoot in log, let's discuss how to color grade it. Color grading is the process of adjusting your video's colors, contrast, and mood in post-production, giving it a more cinematic, professional, and creative touch. To color grade your log footage, you need to import it into an editing software. Today, we're going to use Premiere Pro, but most video editors will be able to do these functions. Here are the steps to color grade your log footage using Premiere Pro. Import your log footage into Premiere Pro and create a new sequence. Add Lumetri Color to apply a LUT or a color space transform to convert it from log to Rec. 709. You can use the Basic Correction tab to adjust your footage's exposure, contrast, temperature, and tint. Use the Creative tab to apply a creative look or a style to your footage. You can use the presets or the sliders to adjust the intensity, saturation, vibrance, faded film, sharpening, and vignette of your footage. To fine-tune your footage's contrast and color, use the Curves tab. You can use the RGB curves to adjust the overall brightness and contrast of your image. You can also use the hue saturation curves to adjust the saturation and hue of specific colors. When balancing shadows, midtones, and highlights, head to the Color Wheels tab. The color wheel can adjust the hue and saturation of each tonal range. You can also use the sliders to adjust the luminance of each tonal range. Now, use the HSL secondary tab to isolate and modify a specific color or range of colors in your image. You can use the eyedropper tool or the sliders to select a color or range of colors. To refine your selection, use the mask tools or the refine edge tools. Then, you can use the correction tools such as the hue, saturation, luminance, denoise, blur, and sharpness of your selection. Repeat these steps for each clip in your sequence until you achieve your desired look.